And welcome to the Bull TV studio, ladies and gentlemen, for the second in our series of greatest of all time episodes. This month, we're going to be talking about the PWBA. Last month, we did the PBA. It was a great show. We've got a great set of panelists that are experts that have been watching the ladies' side of the sport for many years, and we're looking forward to having a really incredible conversation today and also determine who we believe is the greatest of all time in PWBA history. Be sure to stick around at the end. We will be doing a final frame at the end of this episode, and I'll put a bow on everything greatest of all time related. So let's just get right to it. Let's introduce our panelists. First off, she is a four-time PWBA champion, three-time major champion. She's probably the one who's had the most personal experience bowling against some of these ladies that we're going to be talking about today. Good morning, Tennille Milligan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. Yes, these goats, I got to bowl against a lot of them. It was awesome. And that's why I am sitting here, because I am not a goat.
Well, but you beat a lot of them too. I mean, I think some of them, I think Wendy might still be mad at you over one title in particular that you beat her.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't get you in any more trouble. Next up on our panel, we've got a gentleman who's spent a ton of time out there repping on the PWBA tour. So firsthand knowledge again for this guy, and he's been around a long time, and he knows just about everything about every player. Let's welcome Mr. Jimmy Callahan to the show. Morning, sir.
Hey, how are you? Great. I'm real excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's list, and I'm sure I'll have something controversial to say as usual.
Okay, I'm looking forward to your controversy as usual as well. And next up on our panel, so this guy covered the PWBA when it was relaunched. He did all the statistics on the website. He's very, very particular about these things, about exactly how many titles, exactly how many shows, exactly how many majors. And he was one of the voices of the PWBA when Bull TV relaunched in 2019. And we're very happy to welcome him back to the Bull TV fold for this show today. How about a big Sport of Bowling show welcome for Mr. Aaron Smith?
Whoa, that was quite the welcome there, JT. I appreciate it. Excited to be back. I found my best Bull TV pullover for this, and and I got my 2003 souvenir guide from the PWBA tour ready to go. So I'm ready to have a great conversation with some great folks here.
And plus, I see some photos on the wall behind you. What do we have there?
Well, as you know, JT, and most folks who have been to the campus here at the IBC know, our conference rooms are named after great bowlers throughout the course of history. So I happen to be in the Marion Ladewig room today. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but yes, so the images and information behind me all representing the great career of one of the GOATs, perhaps, Marion Ladewig.
Okay, well, we'll have to see if she made our list. Certainly a very historic player and a name that has won so many major titles. And our last but not least member of the panel, he is the voice of the PWBA tour, and he knows just about as much about PWBA bowling as anybody. Let's give a big, warm reception to the man who's never seen A Christmas Story. Neil.
That was a very good icebreaker.
I've never seen it either.
Very good icebreaker. Let me just say this, okay? Following Aaron Smith is a joy, because the guy's got his pencil or his pen in his ear right now. That means he is solely about business, if you know Aaron Smith. So I'm very much looking forward to what he has to say, as well as Jim and certainly Tennille, because they have some perspectives simply that we don't. And so I'm very much looking forward to listening to them. And obviously hearing what we all have to say as a group in general certainly should be fun. And I appreciate you guys having me.
Well, thank you guys all. And as last time, we're going to go around the room. The format's going to be, we're going to throw out our 5 players in no particular order. We're going to have a little bit of discussion as we go around the room. Then we're going to take a quick break. And then everybody's going to resort their top 5 from 1 to 5 so that they can reveal who their greatest of all time is, and then so on down the line. And then Chase Kaufman, our producer behind the scenes, is going to give everybody a point total based on their rankings. And we will have a consolidated list of the greatest PWBA bowler of all time, which of course will be the most important list ever done because it's our list, right? So, so it'll go up on Mount Rushmore, so to speak. We'll have to find a mountain that we can carve the faces into. But let's go ahead and get started. As it should be, ladies first. Tennille Milligan is going to lead us off with her list of the greatest 5 of all time.
All right, this was really hard. I had a much harder time doing this one than I did the PBA one. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was because of, the different parts of PWBA, LPBT history. If it was because I got to compete with some of these ladies. I don't know what it was, but this one was really hard. So I'm going to start off with, again, no particular order, of the greatest of all time, in my opinion, Aleta Sill. Aleta Sill, 31 titles, 6 majors, just a phenomenal bowler, lady, athlete, $1 million winner. I mean, she was the first to $1 million in our sport. So it was, so Aleta is up there. Another one for me, Lisa Wagner. She is all-time title earner. Again, 3 majors, been player of the year 3 times, led the averages 3 times, U.S. Women's Open champion. I mean, it's Lisa Wagner. Another lady on my list, Liz Johnson. You can't leave her off the list. She had a Hall of Fame career before tour ended, and she's continuing to have a Hall of Fame career. She's not done. So there's no way that we can't call her the greatest of all time. Leanne Barrette. You know her as Leanne Holzenberg these days, but I knew her as Leanne Barrette. She is on my greatest of all time list. Again, 27 titles, 2 majors, player of the year twice, money earner. She's just Leanne Barrette. Amazing to watch. And then I'm going to tell you a couple ladies not on my list before I get to my last one. And it was really hard. And Patty Costello. I really debated a lot about Patty Costello. Never got to meet her, but followed a little bit of the career and what I could find and the amazing just talent that she was out there. And just talking to some of the former players who did compete against her, and they just said she was unstoppable. Tish Johnson, almost on my list. It was really hard not to put her on my list. It was a big debate. Matter of fact, this morning at breakfast, I debated it with my husband. We were going back and forth with do we put Tish on there, and just strictly for longevity again. And then another one not on my list was CDB. Could be changed. My mind could be changed by this panel, but my last GOAT was Wendy Macpherson. 20 titles, 4 majors, 4 player of the years, 4-time money leader, led average 3 times. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that was my list, and it was so hard.
That's a great list. I mean, it's a really great way to set up the show. There are a lot of really hard decisions that we're all going to have to make to put who we think deserves to be in that list. But I think that was a really great way to kick us off. Jimmy Callahan, what have you got, sir?
It's interesting. I've spent time with a lot of these players. Actually, every player on this list I've actually repped before, so on my list. So it's interesting. Lisa Wagner is my first one. She is actually the first person I ever had on a TV show, which is cool. So I have a little soft spot for her. I mean, Tennille gave some great things about her. She won a title. She won 8 years in a row. She won at least 2 titles from 83 to 90. First woman ever hit 100,000. Bowler of the decade in the 80s. Bowled for the title 57 times. She was 32 and 25 in those title matches. Bowler of the year 3 times in 83, 86, and 88. So that's one of my first ones. Second one, Leanne Barrette. 27 titles, 3-time player of the year, won 3 titles as a rookie and rookie of the year. She won the coolest tournament of ever, I think. She won the U.S. Open in 2011 in Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So she definitely is in that mix to be the GOAT. She has over 100 TV appearances. She's one of only 4 women to ever win $1 million. That's crazy. And she was the first woman ever to win back-to-back Player of the Years in 90 and 91. Third, Aleta Sill. Sleeper. Don't sleep on this one. 31 titles, 6 majors, first woman to pass $1 million, like Daniil said. She won as a 19-year-old. Leading money winner in 83, Bowl of the Year in 84 and 85. First Triple Crown winner ever in men's or women's bowling. And actually, I need to add another one. My notes are out of order. She led in money 6 times, from 83 to 86 and 93 and 94. Aleta Sill was incredible. Third, my closest one to me, Liz Johnson. 26 wins. She's had 11 titles since the 2015 relaunch. She's won the U.S. Open 6 times, Rookie of the Year, bowled 300 on TV twice, including that famous September 11th, right after the attack on September 14th in Miami. She bowled 300 in that one. She won the U.S. Open 4 times in a row. I don't need to say any more than that. All-time leader in majors with 10. Elizabeth is incredible. She won Player of the Year 3 times in a row, 15, 16, and 17. She's ridiculous. Liz is, that's a tough one for me. She's incredible. And fifth, I'm going to wait. I have 3 that were tough. Kelly Kulick was one that I considered, but she only has 7 titles. She does have 5 majors, but I think when we discussed this last month, we kind of wanted our criteria to be over 15 titles. So Kelly come up a little short. And Carolyn made 18 shows in 1 year. But I got to go with Wendy Macpherson. She has 20 titles, 6 majors, 4-time Player of the Year. She won the U.S. Open at 18 years old when she was still in high school. That's crazy. All-time earnings leader on the PWBA. All-time record for single season. 6 majors, 3 queens, 2 Sam's Towns, 1 U.S. Open. And then people forget when the tour stopped, she went to Japan and won 10 titles in the women's JPBA. And she's the youngest person ever to win a major. So my list is Wagner, Sill, Johnson, Barrette, Macpherson.
It's a great list. I love it. I mean, this is like you said, it's really hard, but I mean, there's a lot of players that have a lot of credentials, and then you have that gap, right, where we don't know what would have happened. So it's a tough thing to do, putting 5 on that list.
I'm sorry, I'm just so shocked right here that Jimmy and I agree on something. I am just flabbergasted.
I almost changed one on purpose so I wouldn't be the same as you. I almost threw a curveball in there, but I didn't want to mess up JT.
All right, Aaron Smith, maybe you can start to maybe give us a little bit of hope that this debate can be settled. What is your list of 5?
Well, I want to thank both Jimmy and Daniil for taking a lot of my great talking points here already. So I'll work through a couple of folks pretty quickly. There are some folks who are going to be repeating on the list. I'll start off with Lisa Wagner. I think Jimmy's note, one of them that I wanted to use, Jimmy, thank you, was the 8 consecutive years of winning multiple titles, which is just phenomenal. She did 10 times overall over the course of her career, 32 wins spanning from 1983 to 1999. So another thing that I kind of appreciated during that era, and that's going to go along with the next person I'm going to mention too, is that you look at the technology in the game at that point as well. And, Lisa definitely won more in the 80s, but still had some success in the 90s as well with the transition of equipment and, as things changed. So I think that kind of plays into it a little bit as well. But Lisa Wagner coming up first. Next is Aleta Sill. So once again, a lot of 80s, a lot of 90s. Aleta had on my notes here, 16 wins in the 80s, 14 in the 90s, and 1 in 2000 as well. Just a phenomenal player. Really like Jimmy's note about winning at 19, and she was the runner-up the week before that, had just turned 19, only a month into being 19 and PWBA Tour champion, which is, just phenomenal to think about, especially with the caliber of players out there. and definitely one of the most intense players to watch. Always enjoyed watching those shows as well. So Aleta Sill is on that list. And then to kind of maintain things, I'm going to mention Liz Johnson as well. I think we've talked so much about Liz and, her success spanning these two eras of, 2003, and then since obviously has been the predominant player on the PWBA tour. And even, thinking of this season, I think Liz, only bowled a couple of stops, still got a runner-up finish in 2025. So I think that, I don't think anyone would be surprised if she added a few more titles to her collection by the time it's all said and done. But Liz Johnson, definitely on the list. And here are going to be my two change-ups. JT kind of alluded to it at the beginning of the show. Marion Ladewig is going to be on my list. And, if you look at the PWBA website and number of titles for Marion Ladewig, it's going to say 2. And, similar to our good friend Michael Flanagan in the last show mentioning Dick Weber, and, he was, I believe, 30 when the PBA came around. The PWBA started in 1960. Marion Ladewig won the first event in September of 1960, the PWBA championship. At that point, though, she had already racked up about, 7 BPAA All-Stars, which is equivalent to the U.S. Women's Open now. She won the first 5 editions of that, by the way, so pretty ridiculous. Had a few Women's World Invitationals in there as well. But here's the thing, and kind of looking this up, and I was going to include Marion no matter what, but mentioned September 1960 is when she won the very first PWBA Tour event ever. In the October 1960 Bowlers Journal, they have an article about it. The great Mort Luby Jr., who also would probably have had editing rights over this title, named the article "Grandma Strikes Again." So she was 45 when the PWBA came around. So just think about that, having the opportunity to compete. She retired from competitive bowling at that level just a couple of years later, 1964. So her professional career in kind of that window just was so short. But in the time that she was out there, 14, kind of wins at major national events over that time frame. Was the very first inductee into the superior performance category for WIBC. And I think another telling aspect of, Marion's impact on the game is she was part of the initial class of the PWBA Hall of Fame as well in 1995. So I think that speaks to her accomplishments as well, that even though, her PWBA career wasn't, didn't have the number of titles like Lisa or Aleta or Liz, that she was regarded that highly by her competitors. So that's why Marion Ladewig's on the list. And 5th, to start things off, Kelly Kulick. And, this is one I was kind of going back and forth on. And, Jimmy had mentioned, 7 titles, 5 majors. Of course, some big moments on the PBA tour as well, becoming the first exempt player in 2006, 2007. And then, of course, the TOC win in 2010. But, in kind of living in the theoretical world of what would have happened if there was a tour out there, Kelly had limited opportunities to compete in those events from 2004 to 2014. Between Queens and U.S. Women's Open, there were 18 of them total. She bowled for the title in 8 of those events. So, just thinking about having the opportunity of, what we have today with 12 events per season, she was making half of the title matches basically at that point, what she could have done with full seasons. And I think just the impact she had on the sport in general can't be overstated. Obviously, the win on the PBA Tour got so much notoriety. And as a bonus point, she is in the Marvel database for being in a comic book for the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man as well. So I think a lot of the things that Kelly did, that kind of got the mainstream recognition as well, puts her on my list. Obviously, we would have, loved to have seen what it would have looked like with a full tour schedule for about 10 years there. But yeah, that's going to wrap up my list for the top 5.
It's a great list. I love all the history that you brought with Marion. A lot of people don't know the history of the PWBA, but I don't think that the PWBA launches, without Marion. And I think to your point about Kelly, it might not relaunch without Kelly. So I'll talk about that with my list. But before we do that, Emil Williams Jr., you've had a chance to sit here and listen a little bit. Now it's your chance to tell us your 5.
Yeah, and first of all, great list from all to this point, and certainly there's going to be a lot of overlap from my list as well. I'm gonna go left to right, and I got a couple notes in front of me. I'm gonna start with Aleta Sill. Again, as mentioned, the 31 titles, certainly the multiple majors. I think the first bowler to win $1 million, that million number still hits home. I think for not just myself, but those of us on this panel, and certainly fans across the PWBA. The multiple titles, and I'm talking about 16 and the 15 and the one in the various decades is impressive to me. And when you talk about lefties, certainly Tish, obviously Patty Costello, and Aleta Sill kind of just edges them, of course, in the titles perspective. The triple crown twice. From the male and female perspective, I thought was maybe the dopest stat when I really sat down and started looking at those things. And so Aleta obviously on the list. So is Lisa Wagner, 32 titles. You can never leave off an all-time leading titles winner on anybody's list. L-Dub gets that. 4 Player of the Year awards. Obviously, we're talking about U.S. Women's Opens. We're talking about USBC Queens. One thing I do think is important too, the Bowler Writers Association of America, which is now the IBMA, those Player of the Year awards, I felt like, and of course, Tennille and Jimmy to some degree would be able to attest. I think they had more prevalence, right? We got later on into PWBA choosing or voting on their Player of the Years, but if you got Player of the Year or Bowler of the Year from a bowling magazine or a publication, that held a lot of weight. And a lot of these players had those, like a Lisa Wagner, for example. Also, the 1980 Rookie of the Year. I thought it was interesting. She won her first title on her 22nd birthday. Little things like that tend to tip the scales for me sometimes as well. And of course, the 32 of 57 titles. That winning percentage, bowling for the title 57 times. That's incredible stuff. Then, of course, Liz Johnson. And you guys basically said everything you could say. The resume does stand alone. The pre-2003, the post-relaunch, if you will, 2 Hall of Fame careers merged into one, multiple 300s on national TV and or a stepladder finals appearance. And I think I'll get to this person, of course, in 1 second, but along with Kelly, really keeping the torch lit for professional women's bowling and women's bowling in general during the time that the PWBA was not in operation. And speaking of Kelly, I'm going to go with Kelly on my list too, at the moment, certainly, but she's going to be on my list no matter what, before a lot of the things that Aaron Smith just talked about. But I think Kelly, and maybe more so than Liz, was able to truly and think Olympic torch, think Kelly running around the Olympic Stadium, running through, neighborhoods, et cetera, holding the torch and proudly being that individual to still allow young girls to have a dream to bowl professionally. We just got done with the PWBA regional showdown. Within the last 2 to 3 regionals, we had, and shout out to Steph for this, making a new bio sheet that had some different questions. And of course, one of the questions was, who's your favorite bowler? 15 players, said Kelly Kulick. And if you ask multiple players across various ages who their favorite bowlers are, Kelly generally is going to be named. And they could be youth bowlers. They could be my age, 41. They could also be older. Like Kelly hits home for a lot of players. She gets gallery still, almost like Tiger Woods-esque when we are still competing. And when Kelly is bowling well, when she is because the gallery starts to form. And so Kelly would definitely make the list. And I didn't even mention the title part. 5-time major winner. She's got 3 U.S. Women's Open. She's got 2 Queens. And she's made 9 U.S. Women's Open shows. That's Liz Johnson territory. And she's got 11 of those shows. And, of course, 6 wins. And then finally, it took a lot, and I'm going to name some players that didn't make my list at the moment. Patty Costello, like Tennille started with, man, I'm still, even right now, debating if Patty can make my top 5. And certainly on the resume side of it, it's without question she should. Same thing with Leanne Barrette / Holstenberg. Historical numbers. And I think when I think Leanne, I think impact as well. When we talk about rev rate, especially now in today's game, in today's women's game in particular, you think of a Leanne who was able to, hook the lane and make that aspect of bowling, specifically in the women's side of things, very cool, admirable, and you wanted to do it. But for now, I'm going to go with Wendy Macpherson for all of the things that Jimmy talked about, to Neil as well, and certainly Aaron. The high school senior winning the U.S. Women's Open. I mean, those are things that we often see now with today's youth bowler, because today's youth bowler is fantastic. But going back to Wendy, I think we talked about Aleta winning early on, as well as a 19-year-old. Those things seemed a bit unfathomable then. That title, the Queen's just a couple of years later. Bowler of the decade in the 90s. The year 2000, she made 15 shows, which was incredible. Won her 4th PWBA Player of the Year award, 145K that season as well. And then, as Jimmy mentioned, 2 big point, I thought as well, the 10 titles in Japan post PWBA ceasing operations, I thought was, you can't allow that to not be listed, right? That one can't fly under the radar. She was at the top of her game, and she proved that still in another country, in a different side of the world. So 20 titles total, 6 majors, all-time money leader when the tour ceased. I mean, that's the list for Wendy, but this list overall was probably the most difficult list I've had to come up with. And maybe I still could be swayed on 1 or 2, but I mean, I think that's a strong 5. Everybody's 5 is strong to this point. And I'm not sure what else we can say about those we've listed. But if you're going to win someone over, you got to have 1 or 2 more points that may stick out. And I think each player certainly has that.
That's great. Great stuff, Emil. Thank you so much for your list. And man, like you said, it's really hard, and we're going to have a tough time between this round and the next round, getting it down to 5 and then ranking them. All right, so my list, I'm not going to give as many statistics as everybody else did, but I have a lot of similar names and a lot of similar problems I had to deal with when it came to, just figuring out which 5 to put on my list. I'm gonna go ahead and give you my 5, and then I'm gonna get down to a bottom and give you some names that I really thought a lot about and thought hard about. So first, I'm gonna say Leanne Barrette, Leanne Holstenberg. To me, I think she's definitely one of the players that could have sort of been the undisputed greatest bowler of all time had the tour kept going. I think she would have won a lot more titles and would have been number 1 on the list when the tour came back and relaunched in 2015. Now, Liz might have passed her, might have not. You never know. But her impact on the game was so huge. In my mind, she was sort of like a female Mark Roth. Kelly Kulick was so influenced by her, wanting to learn how to hook the ball. And then all the players today, for the most part, are sort of prototypes of Leanne Barrette, because their ability to play the power game so well. So to me, she had a huge impact on the sport and could have been the greatest in terms of statistics had the tour kept going. Number 2, I'm going to list Lisa Wagner. You can't, I think, leave the person off that has the most titles in the history of the PWBA off this list. The other piece to this, and I'm going to get a little controversial here, and I'm going to get really controversial later when I come down to my final selection on my list. To me, the fact that she's right-handed and she won all those titles makes a big difference. I know there were, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think with lane maintenance, there were some issues where sometimes you'd see 5 lefties on a show, and I think a lot of those players got a lot of titles because of that. Now, they were all great players, and I don't take anything away from them, and I'm definitely not on the anti-lefty lefty hater club at all. I actually have a great deal of respect for lefties, and I think they're amazing. But Lisa Wagner makes my list because she had the most titles out of all of them, and she had more than the lefties. I'm going to put Wendy Macpherson on my list. I think she's right in there in that same category as Leanne in terms of somebody that could have really pushed out the number of titles and been the greatest of all time statistically. She was still pretty young when the tour folded. And then what she did after the tour went away was amazing. You guys referenced her career in Japan. She bowled a 300 on TV there, and it was an amazing spectacle. And then the other piece, we're going to talk a little bit about what some of these ladies did against the men when the tour was gone. Wendy Macpherson has an accomplishment against the men that nobody's mentioned. She was the first to bowl an 800 series for a woman in the USBC Open Championships, and she won an eagle. And that's a big deal. I mean, it wasn't a cheap eagle where she shoots 630 on a 5-player team and gets one that way as sort of the weak person. She won singles bowling 800. So, I mean, Wendy Macpherson to me is unbelievable. So here's where it gets tough. Liz Johnson, easy selection. I'm not even going to say anything about her because you have to put her on the list. It would almost be like the people that didn't vote for EJ for Player of the Year this year, right? You have to put Liz Johnson on this list. So that's easy. I'm just going to leave it at that. Number 5 for me is the hardest one because I talked about the lefties. You got Patty Costello, you got Aleta Sill, you got Tish Johnson. And to me, it's and you guys can convince me. I might change my mind. I think one of them probably has to be on the list. But which one, right? For me, it was Aleta probably gets the nod because she had the most titles, the most majors, but Patty Costello had some of the greatest seasons of all time. So for me, it's between the two of them. I want to mention Tish Johnson. To me, she's the female Pete Weber. I loved watching her on TV. I think she was the most exciting player in television. But because she was a little bit up and down on TV, sort of like Pete, she didn't capitalize as much as some of those other players when she made it to TV. So I'm going to rank her a little bit lower than those other two lefties. And then the one I ended up putting on my list is Kelly Kulick. And I'll just say, a lot of you guys have already said it. I don't think the tour gets relaunched without what Kelly Kulick did. I think her winning the Tournament of Champions was the greatest accomplishment in the history of the sport, and I don't think anything's even close to it. I do think Liz Johnson settled the argument whether who's better between the two and who's the greatest by the number of titles she's won since the tour relaunch, and also the fact that she ended up winning a title against the men as well, just to say, hey, I can do it too. But when the tour relaunched, it was still a question over who was going to be the greatest bowler of all time on the lady side, and it was between Kelly Kulick and Liz Johnson. And Kelly Kulick has not had a bad career since the tour relaunched. There's only 3 other players that have made more shows than her since the tour relaunched. And she also went through some things with her mom that probably would have, if that hadn't happened, would have led to her winning a lot more titles. So to me, she's number 5 on my list. I do want to mention also a couple other players. I think CDB is in that category with Wendy and Leanne, where if the tour had kept going, I mean, she had the most momentum going into the gap when the tour folded. So she would have added a lot of titles to her name and maybe would have gotten there in terms of the most winning player of all time. And then I'm going to mention 2 other players that nobody's mentioned. And to me, these are really important players to mention because it really talks to the tragedy of losing the PWBA for all those years. First is Michelle Feldman. I think Michelle Feldman was in that category with Leanne, where she was starting to change the game. She could do something nobody else could do. She was winning titles in bunches, and she would have won a lot more, in my opinion, because the rest of the tour had a long way to go to catch up with her power and the way she was just completely changing the game. So I want to mention her, and I'm excited to do her USBC Hall of Fame interview here in the next couple of weeks. So, and then I want to mention Shannon O'Keefe as well. I feel like Shannon O'Keefe, if the tour had gone on, would have started winning a lot earlier than she did and would have probably deserved mention on this list and maybe would have gotten there because she's such a winner and she's so driven. So I do want to mention her. Obviously can't put her on the list. She didn't win enough based on the statistics. And then, obviously her career's been cut short a little bit by the issues she's going through right now. And in my opinion, could have added a lot more to her resume in the last couple of years if that hadn't happened. But I do want to mention those 2 players. And I do, before we take our break, I want to give you guys just sort of a chance to give your perspectives on the tour going away and how that has changed this dynamic for you guys?
Well, it sucks. Come on. I mean, I'm just going to stay straightforward. It sucked. 2003, I was impacted by that, along with a lot of other ladies. I mean, you talked about it, the Michelles, the Wendys, I'm going to that group right there, right? The momentum builders, everything that was happening there. This list would be completely different, I think. Because if you go back and you look on PWBA, stats from 2002, 2001, 2000, you just kind of go back there and you see the names of who just finished, who won and who finished second, right? Dee Dee Davidson's name's on there a bunch. Leanne's on there. Tiffany Stanbro. There's a bunch of names on there that this could have changed everything. Carolyn would have continued to win. She, when Carol Cara Honeychurch, the list goes on and on. So yes, it's completely different. Can you tell I'm bitter?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that stuff. So, and then even that small group, I call it a small group that was just getting done with college, they're them coming up and missing out for a lot of years and because of the relaunch. So, with that giant gap, this could be totally different.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I'm going to go back to why Kelly wasn't on my list. Yes, Kelly is one of my favorites in the world, right? I love Kelly Kulick. However, this was the PWBA GOATs. She wasn't quite there because it was cut short. Would she been? I think so. Could have been. So that's why Kelly wasn't really on my list, was just because of everything that she did afterwards wasn't really PWBA. And she still didn't beat me twice at Queens.
I was going to just say that. I knew you were still mad about
El
that.
Paso.
I mean, you want the rematch, right? You should do like a special match to Neil Milligan versus Kelly Kulick for the, what year was it? Queens title?
2010.
2010 Queens title. Doing it with the correct format.
Right back in El Paso.
Yeah.
So that's part of that. Yeah. No bitterness from 2003.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up. Anybody else have any perspective on that one in particular? Kelly, and also just sort of the gap, Jimmy.
I think, Kelly's a tough one because, we had talked last month about requirements a little bit, about how we thought 15 titles maybe would be the number. I just think when she came back, she didn't win enough, to be honest. I mean, and I understand you guys' points that, the tour wouldn't exist. By the way, this isn't about that. This is about the greatest player of all time, the GOAT. Because she did that does not, in my opinion, put her on that list to do it. There are so many people with such larger. She won 5 majors. We have 4 or 5 people on our list that have more than that. You know what I mean? Is she a great bowler? Yes. There's no doubt about that. But I'm going to tell you, since she's come back, Liz has won 11 times. How many times has Kelly won? 2 or 3? I don't know the exact number, but think about this too. Everybody's talking about Kelly would have done it. Liz was 29 years old when the tour stopped. Think about people that could have rolled up titles when you look at it. And I'm going to tell you one person that everybody forgot. She was talking about collegiate people. How many titles would Shannon Pluhowski have had?
Yeah.
We talk about the lefties, how good it would have been. And you know what? Deandra was in that era as well. But I think that when you look at Shannon Pluhowski, that's a great call by Tennille, talking about the collegiate players that got shorted. There was a lot of them, but I think Shannon would have been a big one. But this is not a slight against Kelly Kulick. But the points you gentlemen made, all 3 of you, is great. But to be honest, in my opinion, this forum is about the greatest of all time. Is she probably the greatest? I don't want to use ambassador because she's way ahead of that. She's probably the person that has driven it more than anybody, but I just don't think she believes she belongs to be on the top 5 lists.
Okay, fair enough. Great points. guys at the bottom there, Aaron Smith, Emil, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm just going to go back to, I think at the time of 2003, July 13th, Michelle Feldman won in Dallas. And after that, it was done the week before in Memphis. Someone named Tennille won. Nice job, Tennille. But when you look at the ages of the players who, at that point had already had 10 plus titles, that's the interesting part about this discussion. Feldman was 27, Leanne was 35, CDB was 38, Kelly 26, Wendy Mac was 35, Kim Adler, who no one's mentioned yet, she was at 35 years old, Carol Giannotti 35, Kim Terrell-Kearney 37, Tish 41. Tish was going to win a few more before it was all said and done too. So I think that's definitely just such a big part of this, is that so many of those players were approaching their prime, and just didn't have the chance to put up, what Lisa had, what Aleta had, what Robin Romeo had for kind of their careers, of getting, a big chunk of it in there without having that disruption. So I think there's always going to be a lot of what ifs with this particular topic. But that's why we're doing this one. That's why we're having this conversation. Everyone's making great points. And it would have been so fun to see how this actually would have played out if everyone had the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Emil, you're always very eloquent with your words. We'd like to wrap up this little discussion before we take our break and put a little bow and perspective on it.
Well, yeah. To be honest, it's probably the most tragic situation. And that's probably not a word you may have expected me to use, but when you really just think about it, and Tennille really summed it up because she lived it, it was tragic. Right now we got to have a conversation about what ifs, and a lot of GOAT combos are about what ifs, right, across every sport, and that's kind of part of it. It gets the people going, right? But in this particular scenario, there is this gap, and a 12-year gap is a long time. Like my youngest son just turned 5 yesterday, and that went by with the quickness, right? And so just imagine what 12 years of, worth of titles, including if they were still bowling somewhere between 25 and 30 tournaments a season, right? We have to keep in mind the relaunch has been no more than, except for 2021. I think that we had 20 or 21 events total or titles given, but it's been somewhere between 8 and 13 consistently since 2015. So you got think about the amount of tournaments that there still could have been. The collegiate aspect certainly is one, certainly Pluhowski, certainly Ass Beatty, formerly Hyman then. All of the, I guess we've had Steph retired recently from Team USA, Shannon O'Keefe retired recently from Team USA, like that bubble, that generation, right? They missed out on the first portion of it. We are all grateful and thankful to be here to have this conversation because of the relaunch. And so that certainly affects Kelly. I think Tennille and Jim made great points. No one is wrong in the situation, truly. But it's one of those, man, the Patties, Leanne's impact, and I mentioned it, but she wasn't originally in my top 5, but I might be moving my vehicle back toward the Leanne Barrette roadway because she was the first person I thought about when I was looking at impact, like who impacted bowling or women's bowling the most, right? Kelly comes to mind, but Leanne certainly, and then into Michelle Feldman, who I also thought about, right? But we were talking about title wins. Aaron, you said she was going to be 27, right? She was 27.
27 years old.
She had the next 12 years, I'm going to say locked up, but how many was she really going to win? A lot. And so, man, it's a tragic scenario that does have somewhat of a happy ending, and we get a chance to be able to be involved in that, to help usher and continue to usher in what is now the relaunch of this PWBA tour, and actually watch collegiate players go from college to the professional ranks, and many of them are having immediate success.
Yeah. So great points, guys. I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure I was going to make it through the show without shedding a few tears. and it certainly is sad to think about. But to your point, Emil, it did have somewhat of a happy ending, and we've got the tour back now and 10 years strong. And I mean, I'm going to talk about it a lot in the final frame, but that's why we do this, right? Is you have a tour because you want to have these kinds of conversations. All right. So we've got a little bit to think about. We're going to make it happen really fast through the magic of editing. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to resort our names, and we're going to come back with all of our lists of the top 5. We're going to have to make some hard decisions, I think, but you're going to see who everybody picked 1 through 5 in the next round coming next. All right, folks, we are back. We did the hard work of sorting through our lists and coming up with our ranked top 5s. We're going to go back around the room in reverse order, which means I will go first this time and give you my list of the top 5. I'm going to go into full screen here. And okay, we're going to start at the bottom, number 5, and we'll work our way up. Everybody will do it that way. Number 5 for me is Wendy Macpherson. I mentioned she is one of those players that could have been the greatest of all time, but she's at the bottom of my list of those players between a couple of others that were still out there on tour. So I put her at number 5, unbelievable player, legend, and also one of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life. So she's my number 5. Number 4, this is the one that hopefully all you folks out there in lefty lover land aren't hating me too much for what I said earlier, but you convinced me. I moved Kelly Kulick out of my top 5, and I picked the one that I said, in my opinion, was the greatest lefty of all time, and that is Aleta Sill. She is my number 4 on the list, and certainly could have been higher had she had a few more years to bowl after the tour folded. Number 3 on my list is the current all-time title holder in PWBA history. It is Lisa Wagner. I have so much respect for her. The only thing with her, I think she could have been number 1 on my list. She didn't win very many majors, and so that put her down a little bit on my list. But to me, she was the definition of sort of the assassin. And then we talked about bowling against the men. A lot of people don't remember this one, but they had a skins game on NBC that they did with Mark Roth and Marshall Holman. Chris Barnes bowled it one year because they wanted an amateur, but Lisa Wagner was picked. So she was clearly the best player at the time in the 80s and 90s. And then Leanne Holsenberg is number 2 on my list. Again, I mentioned her impact on the sport, her unique game, the power game, and she was the youngest really out of that crop of players that had a bunch of titles when the tour folded. And so I really do think she could have put a good competition to the lady that got the number 1 spot on my list, and that would be Liz Johnson. I just think that Liz Johnson is just such a winner. She's won at every level, including men. She's won a PBA title. She's going to win a PBA 50 national title probably next season. But to me, she's the greatest winner in the history of our sport. We are going to name a conference room after her here at the USBC, which makes it even more obvious that she is one of the greatest of all time. But in my opinion, she's the greatest female bowler of all time. And I think the one piece I would add to that is if I had to pick one person, male or female, to throw a strike for my life, I'm picking Liz Johnson. She gets it. I think she gets it just about every time. So that is my list. And as I mentioned, we're going to go in the opposite order around the room. So Emil Williams Jr., you are up next, sir.
Okay. Great list, first of all, JT. And this has been a fantastic discussion. And when we started out and we dropped our players for, that we were essentially making eligible for this discussion, and we each probably had about really 5 through, in some cases, 10 players. And so, and to Neil and Jimmy, when we got to the Kelly conversation, you convinced, JT, but I got to stand on business. Okay. I'm standing on business, and I'm going to have Kelly Kulick as my number 5. And part of it is the 12 years without a tour. There is the what if, as we talked about, and I'm going to go with the what if because I just don't see a world in which Kelly doesn't get to 20 plus titles. With that said, I'm also going to leave out a player that I shouldn't leave out, but I'm taking Kelly's impact on the sport and women's bowling as a whole because I dearly love Leanne Hulsenberg, and she should be on the list. And I know she's going to be on it when it's all added up, but she's like 5B for this particular moment. Number 4 on the list, I am going to go with the Wendy Macpherson. The 1.2 mil. What she did in Japan after the PWBA ceased in 2003. All of the accolades, the 18-year-old winner at the U.S. Women's Open stands out, certainly in the bowler of the decades in the 90s. Fantastic stuff. Number 3, I'm going to go with Lisa Wagner. 32 titles, and that's a number that certainly could not be challenged. We'll see, obviously, what the future holds. There's still some players who will have some opportunities, especially some younger players who have gotten off to great starts. But 32 is just a big number. But it's my number 2 from the numbers perspective is Aleta Sill. She's got one less title, but the majors to me is the separator between Aleta Sill and Lisa Wagner. The first player to do or handle the Triple Crown twice, male or female. We talk about the $1 million mark as well. Leanne made the $1 million mark. Let me say that again also. And but the number 1 for me is, as Jim Callahan would say, Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth Johnson is number 1. Man, watching her up close, and I think also that's part of it too. For myself, Aaron, everybody on the panel generally has seen these players, but for myself, watching Liz, Kelly up close, not getting a chance to see, someone like Aleta, Elisa, Wendy up close and in person. We watched them on TV, but man, it is so much different when you watch these players handle business in the moment, highest of moments. Everything's on the line, pressure packed. One moment that stands out to me for Liz Johnson, a lot of individuals, fans across the sport criticize Liz for being quote unquote one-dimensional. And in the 2017 Players Championship, when she defeated Kelly in the title match, playing in, which is what many say that she cannot do. And I think she even said kind of her most emphatic and most important victory of her career by proving that she can play wherever she needs to play to get the job done. And so that stands out to me, and she is my PWBA GOAT, Liz Johnson.
That's a great list and a great point. I did Liz's PWBA Hall of Fame video recently, and the only time she would toot her horn was about that one event you just talked about. She's like, oh, you don't think I can play in? Okay. That was my favorite moment.
You stood on business.
Yeah. So great list. Aaron Smith, you are up next, sir. Who do you have for your top 5?
Well, for my top 5, I am going to make a change. So one change coming up for me, but after that, this may sound very familiar to someone else's list. Number 5 is going to be Kelly Kulick. Going to keep Kelly on the list. Like pretty much what Emil said, just the what if is big enough, and just the cultural impact of what she brought to women's bowling is just phenomenal, and it's enough to stay on the list. She does get knocked down to number 5, just not having the same amount of titles as the person who's going to jump into the list. I'm going to drop Marion Ladewig off the list, but I did feel it was important to talk a little bit about her and the history and how much she impacted the sport in the early going as well. But moving on to the list for me is going to be Wendy Macpherson. So Wendy's going to be number 4 on my list. The run she went on in the late 90s, certainly 4 out of 5 Player of the Year awards. $1 million, the win at 18 years old at the U.S. Women's Open, just phenomenal. And then, Jimmy brought up some great points. JT brought up some great points with the success she had outside of the PWBA window as well, and just doing some phenomenal things too. But Wendy is going to move on to my list, and she's going to take over the number 4 spot. Number 3 is going to be Lisa Wagner. 32 titles, the most all time. The reason she's going to be number 3 on my list is due to the majors. So not quite as many majors. So that's really the only reason she's dropping a spot in my list. Number 2 is going to be Aleta Sill, and Aleta's going to get that bump because of number of major wins for one, little bit longer window as well for her in the winning department as well. So that's why Aleta is going to be number 2 for me, and then Liz Johnson's going to be top of the list. I think Emil summed it up pretty well, especially that win in 2017, I believe, over Kelly in the title match. And anyone who's great at getting left in hooking lane, it's Kelly, and Liz took care of business that day. But I think, for myself personally, 2009 was my first year working in this world. I got to work at the Women's Championships, and I got to watch Liz win the 2009 Queens first, through qualifying at the NBS, and then they had the finals over at the Reno Event Center. Watching her win that title was, that first year of experience, what turned into my career. Certainly a big moment, and getting to see that moment and appreciate that history, and then getting to see just so many moments over the course of time certainly has left an influence as well. So Liz is the GOAT on my list.
Okay, well, we see a trend developing here with the number 1, which I'm not surprised about. But let's see if Jimmy Callahan has anything different with that, or with some of the other selections on the list.
This is a little different, though. I personally believe majors are the most important thing why you bowl. It's like Tiger Woods, when he played on tour, he played to win the majors. So my list is a little bit different. I have Lisa Wagner at number 5. She didn't win as many majors as the other players. Great player, most wins overall, but I got Lisa at number 5. Then I have, I changed it in my mind there. I'm going to put Aleta Sill at number 4. There's not much to be said about her. I mean, she's fantastic. Great bowler. In my opinion, number 1 lefty of all time. Number 3, Leanne Barrette. Leanne, major titles, player of the years, fantastic player. And everybody is exactly right on Wendy Macpherson. I'm going to put Wendy Macpherson at number 2. I think that based on the criteria of, the era ending where she was, just kind of in her wheelhouse of doing it, I think Wendy could have had a crazy amount of titles. And then number 1, Elizabeth Johnson, no doubt about it. She's incredible. I mean, you run out of adjectives when describing Liz. She won the U.S. Open 4 times in a row. That's crazy. I was fortunate enough to be there for the majority of her wins, and I was very lucky to deal with her. And I was around Belmo and her. I'm telling you, they think differently. It's crazy when the greats. I'd love to have been around Gretzky and Jordan and things like that. To me, Liz is the Jordan of bowling, for women's bowling.
Yeah, that's good points. I'm glad you also compared her to some of the other great athletes.
Jordan for Emil, by the way, because he's
yeah, for sure. I mean,
we talked about cursing on this show, and we said, "No, only if it makes sense." But you're damn right, you said.
Perfect. All right, Tennille Milligan, what is your final list? I know you were going through a lot of stuff in your brain on the break.
Man, I've changed my list 3 to 4 times already. I mean, just listening to everybody, we're going back and forth. And I mean, I've been fortunate. I got to play on the same lanes as my top 5, a couple of them more than others. But I'm putting my number 5 is Leanne Barrette, Leanne Holsenberg. She's my number 5. And again, going back to talk about Jimmy, what we weigh this on a lot had to do with majors, and not just, making the major shows, but the wins, and her having a couple of them put her at my number 5. My number 4, I have moved her down on my original list, and that was Lisa Wagner. Lisa, 3 majors on there, 3-time player of the year, bowler of the decade in the 80s, but I moved her down, and I moved up Wendy Mac. Wendy Macpherson moved up 4 majors, 4-time player of the year, led earnings 4 times, average earner. I mean, it's just on and on. Won the Queens 3 times. that's their own goat in itself right there. So Wendy Mac is my number 3. Moving into the number 2 spot was Aleta Sill. Aleta Sill, I didn't get to bowl too much with Aleta, but when I did, wow, that was fun to watch. She was intense. She was very intense, but at the same time, so kind. But she has moved up on my list. 6-time major winner, led money 6 times. So that's where she's at for me. And number 1 GOAT, Liz Johnson. I don't have any more to say about Liz.
Well, great list. I'm interested with all the moves that you made. I think those were cool and interesting. Our next segment's not going to be all that exciting when it comes to the number 1 spot, but we're gonna take a quick break and tally up the points and see who made our final 5. Liz Johnson is the greatest bowler of all time. It's undisputed according to our panel, but we're going to see where some of the other players rank on the list coming up next. All right, folks, we have tallied up our lists for the top 5 greatest of all time in order. Some interesting things happened. Obviously, we all know who number 1 is, but we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. And we actually do have 1 spot to settle, and we're going to try to do it in a fun way. So number 5 is Leanne Barrette. Leanne Barrette, Leanne Holsenberg, whatever you'd like to use as the last name there. She got 8 points in our tally, and she is number 5 on our list. Okay, here's the one where it's interesting. We have a tie for the number 3 and 4 spots. And so Lisa Wagner is 1 and Wendy Macpherson is 1. They both got 12 points. And so what we're going to do is Tennille Milligan, who not only bowled against both these ladies, but also was in charge of running the tour and making the rules a few years back. And she's now in the rules department at USBC. You're going to come up with a rule right here on the site, right? Because if remember, if there's like a tie in qualifying, it was the high block. And then if the high block was the same, it was the high game. So what are we going to do here to break the tie and see who gets the number 3 seed and who gets the number 4 seed?
Well, normally I just say rock, paper, scissors is how we should break the tie. But that could go on all day. I think to break ties, you have to go off of major championships. Major championships to me breaks a tie. That's in my opinion, major championships.
That's why they call you Major Milligan. Majors are
important.
You
beat me to it, JT.
Yeah. So, we'll put Wendy is number 3. You guys okay with that decision?
Yeah.
You all approve? Okay, it's approved. So Wendy Macpherson is going to be number 3 on our list. Lisa Wagner, number 4. Number 2 is Aleta Sill with 16 points. And I put her on my list. I think she is the greatest lefty of all time in the history of the PWBA tour. And she's going to sit at number 2 when all is said and done for our Mount Rushmore. And number 1, as we mentioned, we already knew who was going to be going into this round. But Liz Johnson, unanimous, 25 points. That's the most points you can get on this little competition that we've come up with. And she is officially the greatest of all time, according to our panel, which makes it official, right? That she is the greatest of all time. No one will question it. You all happy with our selections? Let's just go around the room one last time and just sort of put a bow on it all. Tennille, why don't you start?
All right. Yes, I mean, these are the greatest athletes out there representing the PWBA tour, no matter which decade, right? These are the ladies that, if you don't know who they are, shame on you at this point. But yeah, I'm extremely happy with the decisions, tough decisions. They were so hard.
Yeah, definitely. Jimmy, what about you?
I think the list we did a really good job, but what I'd like to add to it is that hopefully, 20 years from now, somebody, you guys can create this list again. Hopefully there's new people that we continue to add. The game is, I think everybody in this room is for the growth of the sport. And, hopefully it continues to grow. And we get the next Liz Johnson, or we get the next, Aleta Sill, whoever it may be. And that's what my goal is, to have everybody, to have bowling continue to flourish.
I agree. Aaron Smith, anything to add on that, or maybe even who you would pick would be the person in 10 years' time that's not currently on the list that could get there? Maybe like a Danielle McEwen or somebody like that.
Oh, well, that's how much time we got? That's a whole different discussion. If I'm going to throw one person out there, just still waiting for the breakthrough with the major, but if I had to throw one person out there right now, I'd say Jordan Snodgrass. As Emil knows from even from the Arkansas State days, always a big fan, and she's got a Player of the Year already in the books, and potentially looking for more. But no, I thought this list was it came together great. I'm happy with the way it looks for sure. Appreciated the conversation with all you great folks as well, putting it together. And it was fun to kind of get back into this landscape and think about this and go through some of the old notes that I had to dust off that I haven't used in a while. So it was fun to kind of get back into this, put the Bowl TV pullover back on. So I appreciate you guys inviting me along for this. It was a great time. And yeah, Lizzie J all the way.
Okay. All right. Emil, I'm always happy to have you go last because you always put a nice spin on everything to kind of close us out. So what do you have to say about our list?
Well, first of all, it worked out that it's the holiday season because Aaron was just kind of, as he was speaking, I'm like, wow, this feels very warm and cozy that he is back in the realm of a podcast of the Sport of Bowling show. And he got to rep Bowl TV one more time. And also having him here allowed us to have some additional historical context, which is always great. And you're going to get that with Aaron. I thought everyone's perspective, specifically to Neil, Jimmy C, and of course, JT, in different realms of the sport. Neil, obviously, as a player, we were talking about rules. She didn't drop a read the rules situation, so I'm a little disappointed about that. Jimmy C, of course, as a rep, watching all of these players, helping them, to some degree, obviously, succeed out there on the lanes. I do want to make sure we just talk about, and we did this a little bit. We also did it kind of off camera as well, but like players like Robin Romeo, Betty Morris, Nikki Giannoulias. We certainly some mentions on Carolyn Dorn Ballard, of course. Just these players were equally as great. And there's minuscule things, right, within major totals or, title wins. It could be someone's title count is 2 to 3 more, one more major sways. Like we just had a tiebreaker on the major, right? And so just to reiterate how great, not just the players that we discussed, certainly, but man, if you look at that list from top as far as all-time titles goes, first all the way to 20th, I mean, you've got name after name after name after name after name. And so it's a fantastic thing just to be a part of, to consider, to think about. And then obviously, not to make it sad, but it is part of the story, right? Those who did not get the chances and it wasn't their fault to be included specifically with these conversations, but it is our job to mention them and what the possibilities are, like a Kelly, for example, on the what ifs. But Leanne is in the right spot. Even as someone obviously who had Kelly on their list, Leanne is in the right spot in the top 5 for sure. And then finally, along with Jordan Snodgrass, as someone who could have the baton and continue it on. Stephanie Zavala has won 6 titles in 5 years. So she is on the trajectory that is moving upward quickly in our current stage of the PWBA.
Okay. And I think also we should mention Jillian Martin. I mean, she's already got
you're right.
a bunch of titles before her career's even started. So she's got a nice head start on that. But that's certainly all great perspective from you guys. And I just want to say a big thank you to you all for coming out and joining the show. Aaron Smith for coming out of retirement briefly to join us. And I love talking to you guys. And I mean, I couldn't think of a better group to put this list together than you guys. And I think we all did a great job. And I hope you all have a great holidays coming up. So that's going to almost do it for our show. We've got one more segment coming up next. A couple of the the folks on our panels hit on it a little bit, but we're going to talk about why it's important to have these tours so that we can talk about things like the greatest of all time. That's coming up next on The Final Frame. Being able to have a spirited conversation about the greatest of all time is one of the reasons that having a highest level for any sport, including bowling, is so important. Part of that is also recognizing the people who made great sacrifices to ensure that the sport would be around for the best in the world to compete in. People like Eddie Elias and Harry Golden in the early days of the PBA, and later Tom Clark, who's probably done more than anyone over the past 2 decades to ensure a future for the sport for the men. On the PWBA side, the story is punctuated by the unfortunate fact that we got to see what would happen if it does go away. And even though we owe so much to John Summer and John Falzone, who kept it going for as long as they could, and the legendary Fran Deacon, who, by the way, would have been the first invitee for today's panel, but I'm sure is watching, loving, and disagreeing with everything we said from up above, we owe a great big thank you to people like Frank DeSocio, Chad Murphy, and the boards of the BPAA and USBC for having the foresight and the presence of mind to bring it back again. Bowlers like Jason Belmonte and E.J. Tackett and Liz Johnson and Kelly Kulick are the reason why kids want to be involved in the sport in the first place. And the history they make out on the lanes inspires the next generation to reach for greatness in their own lives. Whether those kids ultimately end up going on the list when their own careers are said and done isn't even the most important thing, however, because just the simple act of chasing greatness for however long you decide to do it is one of the most important lessons a person can learn in life, no matter what they end up deciding to pursue. I hope you all enjoyed our shows on the greatest bowlers of all time, and I encourage you to let us know in the comments, and I know you will, who you think deserves to be on our list, and how you would rank them, and which young bowlers are you looking forward to watching over the next several years to see if they can claim a place among the greatest of all time. Thanks for watching our show, everyone, and until next time, may you fill every frame.